Okay, great. Thank you. This is the April 21st meeting of the Larkspur Rec and Park Commission. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Keppel,
Here.
Commissioner Harrison,
Here.
Vice Chair Sunshine.
Here.
I'll note that Commissioner Blauvelt and Chair Friedel are absent.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, public comment. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak on matters that are not on the agenda?
I'm looking for any raised hands, and there's no public comment.
Okay, do we need to do anything to close that out, or we can move on to item 3?
You're good to move on.
Okay, so now we're looking for approval of the consent calendar. Is there someone who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Great.
Commissioner Keppel,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sunshine.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Okay, we don't have a public hearing. So moving on to our business items. We are discussing the naming policy for city parks and facilities. Oh, this is the naming policy for city parks and facilities workshop 2. Rita, would you like to take it away?
I would. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Sunshine. Good evening, everybody. As she just mentioned, this is part 2 of the discussion regarding the establishment of a naming policy for the city of Larkspurs, parks and facilities. I'm going to share my screen. See the PowerPoint? Yes, perfect. Okay, so last time, I think, well, I'll just do a quick recap. Basically, this came about as sort of just trying to be proactive. We have a couple of park projects that are being privately funded and playground projects that are being privately funded. And, you know, there's been conversation with the donors about when the parks are finished, that, you know, they may want to attach their name in some fashion or have some sort of recognition for their financial contribution. So in that conversation, went in and looked at our Muni code and looked through some archives, and we do not have any kind of a naming policy for the city, anything formal. We do, thanks to a citizen that spoke at the last meeting, there is in the general plan some mention about preferred names for streets, but nothing for parks. So we started the conversation last month, and before we go into what we talked about, I just want to just have some definitions. So naming is either the naming of a new park or facility or the renaming of a park or facility. Oh, here's Sandy. Hi, Sandy. And then when we talk about parks, we're talking about real property. We're talking about, you know, just parks, open space, trails, greenways. And then when we're talking about facilities, those are things that are within a park, an amenity within a park, a substantial amenity like a building or a playground or a dog park or a soccer field, picnic area. That's what those would be. And then amenities would be just smaller things like benches and trees and things that are small in nature. So currently we have no established naming policy. We do have parks that are named. So we kind of talked about different kinds of names. And so this is just an overview of what things are currently named. And then all the parks have names. We only have one facility that is named throughout the whole city, and that is the dog park at Piper Park. It's casually referred to as, I don't think anybody really calls it Canine Commons, but it is named as such. So last time what we discussed after going through just some of this preliminary information. So this is what we discussed, and we talked about different categories, and we felt that there needed to be a distinction between naming of parks and naming of facilities. So this is in relation to parks. And so there was after much discussion, we felt that I think there were four commissioners there that day. I'm not sure, Sandy, Commissioner Blavat, whether or not you had dropped out at that point, because I think you had some connectivity issues. But the preference was that for parks, the preferred names would be in the category of geographical, locational characteristics, natural, geological, astronomical, or local flora and fauna. And in your agenda packet, there is a chart. I think it's attachment number 2 that describes. I'm sorry, it's attachment number 3. Goes into just a little more description about what types of names would be under those categories. And then the names that would be less preferred or less desirable would be parks named after cultural events, historic events, people or families, organization or groups, or indigenous references, unless the group itself brought out the naming request. Otherwise, we run into the possibility of cultural appropriation. Now, moving to facilities. So these would be things within a park, so like a playground, a picnic area, what have you. Again, the preferred list was in the geographical, locational, natural, geologic, astronomical, local flora, fauna, but we did include in the preferred side names of people or families. Less preferred was the same as basically we just moved one, the people or family from less preferred to preferred for facilities. And again, the reason for that was because parks are long, they're long lived, they last for, 100 years, 200 years, rarely decommissioned, whereas facilities have a much shorter useful life, maybe 20, 30 years, something like that. And so we felt like it was felt that the bar was much, much higher when we're naming a park. And so we wanted to avoid things that were created a potential for controversy. So that was what was previously discussed. Before I move on, any comments, or did I get anything wrong on any of this? Okay, so we sort of stopped. It was a good point to stop by, we had gotten to the place where we said, okay, the thing with people, naming parks after people, for facilities, or even for parks, again, the standard is, the bar is set high, but, there was conversation that, say, for instance, somebody donate a parcel of land for a park, it would be reasonable for them to request that the name of the park or the facility be named for their family or what have you. So just wanting to open up this conversation about name, just some questions. These are just a couple of questions I came up with. There might be other, really wanting to encourage you guys to come up with questions. I don't want to be the question maker. Really this should be an open conversation, and these are just some starting questions, and then we can delve into this a little bit more. So any thoughts so far on this? It's been a couple months since we presented this last time. Have you had further thoughts about this? Anything to add?
I had a chance to review some of the other policies from other cities and counties, and it did seem like a preponderance of them, and I don't know, did stipulate that the person be deceased versus living. And again, I'm very open to my fellow commissioners' thoughts on that, but it did feel like that was a decision point that people had, or that had been made with some of the other jurisdictions.
Do we know why that is, by any chance? Is there a reason for that? And is there a good justification for that? Does anyone know?
I sat in on I listened in on a meeting at, I think it was the city of San Mateo. And they actually did discuss this idea of the living or deceased. And there was a feeling that, oftentimes things get named for people, because something happens, like somebody dies, or, we'll just use something, a more recent example, like say when George Floyd, that, there would be maybe a reason that somebody would want to name a park after, somebody, after a public figure has passed away, or, a president has been assassinated or something like that. And so there's this idea that, there's a swell of emotion that comes along with that. And there's a feeling of that perhaps maybe we should just let that, let the emotions, subside a little, and then, then come back with a clear head and decide if that is indeed an appropriate thing.
So to avoid a knee-jerk reaction, let
Yeah.
do a little
I
bit.
think, right, exactly. But then I've heard the other side where, for instance, this particular council board that meeting that I sat in, somebody said, well, if a park is being named after, say, like somebody that gave extraordinary service to a city, wouldn't it be nicer to name that park for the person while they were still living? Otherwise they would never know that the park had been named for them. So, I think there's arguments for either side, and we just really, for us, is just deciding, if that is something that we, or is it even, is it a policy that even needs to be set in writing?
Yeah, I think I do know in San Francisco, I don't know if it's about the actual parks, but they make a distinction about not naming buildings after living people, because as a way of hedging against politicians naming buildings after themselves. So that I think that was one of the statements. I'm not quite sure where I fall on this one way or another. It feels like it's sort of like it depends. And prescribing one over the other. I mean, I guess that's the point of a policy, but it feels very arbitrary to sort of say that someone has to be deceased for a certain number of years before.
Commissioner Blauvelt, you're muted. I think you're trying to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, there I am. Thank you. I'm thinking that I'm wondering if these things can be looked at on a case by case, because I think it might vary depending on who it is, or if they're alive or just. Has that ever been done? A case by case. I mean, that would be a policy.
Yeah, I mean, there's some cities have policies that don't even mention this topic.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the fence about this as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you can make an argument either way, and if we all kind of feel the same way, maybe the answer is just to not have any policy regarding, deceased versus living at all.
Right.
Okay,
I agree.
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
Because I don't think we want to tie our hands, really.
Yeah.
Right.
As Sandy was saying, I mean, case by case basis, like if something something happens, and we want to go ahead and recognize that person, and there's broad public support, we don't want to all of a sudden be like, well, we can't do that because the person's hasn't been dead for 10 years or 5 years.
Right.
I agree. Okay.
So I think that, just by not having anything at all,
Mhm.
it just gives us better flexibility.
Perfect. Okay.
Do we all need to agree on that? Is that okay? Two of us agree.
Yeah, we could do a quick, who feels that we should not even have that in our, in our policy, living or deceased? Commissioner Capel, that's a no for you, or you agree that it shouldn't be in the policy, right?
I agree that there should not be a policy regarding being alive or deceased.
Right, okay. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense to remain silent on it.
Okay. Commissioner Blaveld?
Yes, I think we should be silent on it too.
Okay. And Vice Chair Sunshine?
I agree.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that was easy. Okay, so the last question doesn't even pertain then because it could be a first name, it could be a last name, it could be a family name,
Yeah.
whatever. And so these would all be basically what I'm hearing is names would be it's okay whether there's no distinction to be made whether they're alive or dead, and it would just be discussed, and the name would, the proposed name would be discussed and approved or denied.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so assuming that a facility is named, whether it be a person's name, a family name, one of these other names that we've talked about, should we have a standing policy where when the facility gets replaced or there's a substantial renovation, should the standard policy be just to discontinue the use of that name, or which provides a new naming opportunity, or should the standard policy be have no name, just don't name it anything at that point? Just opening up that conversation.
Well, I have a thought. I think if something's been named, you don't want to change that. I mean, I don't think you want to get a replacement.
Could you repeat
that? I think if it's named.
that? Could you repeat that? You're cutting in and out.
Me, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, if a facility if it's already got a name, I think it should stay that way. It's awkward to replace it or change it or something. Why not just continue it? That's my thought.
Well, I don't think I want to say that all names are permanent, though. If something comes up and you kind of look at Drake High School changing the name to Archie Williams. I think again we should have the flexibility to should something happen and we find out something about the name of a person that's been named, the name of a park that's been named after a person, and the public feels that it's important to change that name. I think we should allow for that to be considered.
Well, that would be kind of like renaming, like if this applies more specifically, like for instance, like let's say the dog park, it has a name and it gets completely replaced or there's a substantial renovation. Do we rename it? And particularly, I think this is where it gets a little tricky. Like, so let's say somebody had donated the money for that dog park like 20 years ago, and then it's gone into disrepair. We wanted to replace it or renovate it. No new money from that donor has come in. Do we just carry that name on, or would that be an opportunity to, just call it the Piper Park Dog Park? Or do we want to continue that name? Should we have a policy at all?
I think in that situation, I would think that we should continue with that name unless there's a good idea or a reason to change that name.
I think so too. I agree with you.
Okay.
Can you give some examples of, in addition to the dog park, of facilities that are named?
Well, we don't have any in Larkspur at the moment, but we will have, perhaps after Dolliver and Niven get upgraded. So, currently we've got 2 donors that are, spending, donating a fair amount of money. We're gonna, somehow their name will be attached to those parks, I imagine. So moving down the line, playground, a useful life of a playground is usually 15 to 20 years and, needs to be upgraded, what have you. So then in that time, if we needed to replace all the play structures that are there, we're putting in new fencing, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're putting in a bunch of, say, either new city money, or a neighborhood gets together and donates money for the renovations. That's where I'm sort of getting at, does the name remain in perpetuity, or, do we have a policy that says, it's at the city's discretion if, at the time of substantial renovation or replacement of a facility, any existing names will be discontinued. That could be a policy.
What if it were not that it will be, but it may be that at a time when a facility that has been named, for a donor, for instance, at the time that it is either replaced or is substantially renovated, the city may consider whether or not it is an appropriate time to rename the facility.
Okay.
And just have it kind of be permissive, but not required.
Good idea.
I agree.
Very practical.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. Before I move on, any other conversation or thoughts, questions that have come to mind regarding naming? Because I'm going to move into process now. So before I move on, I just want to make sure that I've, captured.
The one question that I had when I was reviewing the other policies, some of the other policies make it very clear that the policy does not allow for corporate sponsorships or corporate naming. Is that something that we want to be explicit about?
We do have them in the less preferred
Right.
section. So what are your thoughts? This is your policy.
I will say that when I was reading through the other policies that you provided us, I did highlight the corporate, and I made a note that says, I like this when it did say there's no corporate sponsorship or corporate naming. So I would probably be in favor of being explicit about that.
Okay.
For parks and facilities?
Certainly for parks.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess if some corporation was to provide a substantial donation for
Like you wanted to
a
renovate?
facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's the Little League Park called now? Is it called, doesn't it have a name?
Joe Wag.
Joe
Wagner.
Yeah.
It's not a city facility though.
Oh,
That land is owned by the Burn Primary and they lease it from the school. So it's not a
that
city,
changes.
it's not a city facility.
So that changes the rules. Okay. All right.
Well, they can do whatever they want on that. Okay, so a for-profit organization or entity is a hard no. Correct?
For parks.
For parks.
Okay, so if you are in agreement with that, would you mind raising your hand? So, okay, perfect. For facilities, what are our thoughts there?
Again,
I just can't think that I want to have a garden brought to you by, Corporation X. I just doesn't sit well with me. I just don't think that that's really appropriate. Maybe an organization or a family or a foundation or something like that, but I don't think we need to have corporate names for any of our facilities personally.
or anything, huh? Parks or facilities, is that your point?
I think so. That's the way I'm leaning anyways. I'm not super strong on that position, but I just can't really see it, feeling good about that really.
Right. The only place I can see that being a problem is not in parks or, might be, I mean, not that it's a problem, but it might be looked at a little differently, is like City Hall. If that chosen to retain City Hall, it might be for money, somebody would, you could name it after somebody, something, some group, something that has money and pays for it. That's the only thing I can think of, though. Commons is not going to have any name, right? I'm just trying to think of what's out there.
Just to not devil's advocate exactly, but just to just put a fine point on it. So I think, it seems easy to say, no, I don't want, Nike or Coca-Cola to come in and name,
Yeah.
picnic area. But would you also feel the same way if it was, say, like a local real estate company or, the Sutter Medical Group wanted to donate money, so, just, I just want to make sure we're thinking broadly, and, it's easy. I think it's easy to, we think national corporations, it feels, no, that's wrong for, that's wrong for Larkspur, but, we do have some, or I don't know, Perry's Restaurant wanted to donate money to, something. So just,
I think for me, naming is fairly significant. I would not want to just say, no, we're not going to take any corporate money, but couldn't there be a way in which people could be recognized, or a corporation could be recognized with a plaque that says, this facility, was, provided generously by,
Mhm.
Coca-Cola or whomever, without actually giving it the name Coca-Cola
Yeah.
hot lot,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I kind of agree with you. Again, it seems to me it's something you might have to look at, given the context at the time, but you can always do that, right?
Yeah.
That's always true.
Yeah, I guess that's my question is, by having this less preferred, is the goal out of this, Rita, to come up with the policy where we would explicitly allow or disallow these various discussion points?
Yeah, the way that I wanted to be able to write the policy is that, these types of names are, it's sort of the way the general plan is written. It says, generally the city prefers to name parks and facilities for geographic, natural features, local flora, fauna, like that. Other names, can be discussed or considered, something like that. But I'm still wordsmithing it, like trying to figure out a way to nicely say, like, yeah, we really don't want to name things for corporations, but
Mhm.
we, it's strongly, it would need to be, vetted pretty strongly before such a thing were to be allowed. So, but I think,
Why even have a less preferred? Why not just have a preferred and let the other go?
Okay, yeah. Mhm. This is really just, I mean, I'm having this stuff, the purpose of this is to just have opened up, just be able to talk about this stuff. We need, it's easy to look at something and be like, no, that's off, So that's really what this is about. So this is just for the PowerPoint. I'm not necessarily going to put this in the
Okay. I got you.
Okay.
in the policy. This is
Okay,
really just to
gotcha.
help us with conversation.
Yeah,
And then just back to the groups and organizations. So, for-profit corporations, what have you, those type, clearly, I think the feeling is that that's a no. Where I feel like we kind of get into a little bit of a sticky area would be more like nonprofits or, foundations, because those could get, depending on the type of organization, it could get controversial as well. But should we just leave that as in the non, just sort of the less preferred and deal with it like with a plaque?
sure. Interesting.
It feels like if it says, and maybe this goes to your next slide, or your slides about process. It feels like if this is a substantial donation, that it's really about the process of like who's doing the negotiate, like what guardrails or policies we want to have in place so that to give the person on the Larkspur side the most leverage to negotiate with a potential donor. Is that kind of the thought here?
Yeah. These kind of just like Sandy said, we would say these are what we would prefer the names to be, these are recommended names for,
Yeah.
these parks or facilities. Say you could, but I'm sure when people come, when we go to the place where we're ready to name something, people can request something else, and so yes, we will have to, it would make sense for us to, it's not like the naming is going to be going on all the time. So, we definitely would want to definitely talk about it and, put a
Yeah.
little baking time in anything that we do so that, we don't feel like we have to name something on the spot.
Right. Yeah, it can take time on it, you're saying, yeah. Good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move into the process part of this now.
Okay.
Okay, so again, these are just questions, they just need to be asked because the wording will go into policy. So, sometimes I'm writing these questions like, of course, this is going to be whatever the answer is. But so, naming requests, can they come from any member of the public?
For sure. I think anybody should be able to. I don't think that should be limited to the council or what's that next word? BO something.
Boards?
Board.
So,
I think the public should, the public is the public. They really rule the roost, in my opinion.
okay. If you're a member of a council or a board, should you be allowed to do it? Should you be recused? Are you considered a member? I just want to open that conversation up.
Well, I think they could all suggest something. I mean, but just because you're on the city council or board doesn't mean you have all the rights. I think the public for sure needs to be able to say whatever they want. They're the most important aspect of government, in my opinion.
Rita, did you come across any limitations with any of these other entities where they have explicitly indicated that a council member or commission member could not make a request?
There was one, but I did a lot of research and I couldn't find it again after I read it, but it was somewhere like in a different part of the country. So, and I only saw one mention of it. So that's why, so Sandy, I mean, obviously, yes, the public, like I said, these questions, I have to write them because I want to be able to put them in the policy. So at least we discussed it. Obviously, the public should be able to, make a request.
Yeah.
But the question about the city council or boards was, whether or not there was any merit to, either, basically, is it okay if you're on the board to recommend, like what if?
Sure. I think that could just read, name requests can come from any member of the public, city council or board, Don't you? That's sort of broad.
Well, it's not up to me. It's not my policy. I'm trying to turn it back to you folks just to have a conversation, at least just to say, at least just to have discussed it. Like, does it, is there any reason why we would want to not have, like say a member of the board
No.
a request to name something after themselves? I mean, you were just saying that Commissioner Sunshine in San Francisco, there was something about people not being able to name things for themselves.
Those politicians, electeds, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, if it became a problem, we could just undo this name request issue, it seems to me. But I would just do it I would just say for any of it, public, city council or board. And all
Okay.
name requests be in writing and,
Or should just be kept simple and just say any
Yeah.
member of the public, can submit a request
yeah, there you go.
and not even mention, the
Council.
councils or boards or anything.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so just, again, this is just this is a conversation starter PowerPoint. These are
Right,
not.
for you
things that
then
are-
come
right,
back with
so-
the written policy.
Yeah, I just, but it's important that we put things out there so that later on, like, oh, shoot, we never even thought about that. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to, I'm not saying that this is going to be verbatim in the policy, but this is really to start a conversation and to think about things, it doesn't, sometimes, it's not as, to me, as clear cut, as you start thinking of, as you start, drilling into a topic. So that's really the purpose of this,
Well,
obviously.
let's go through the rest of it. All name requests should be in writing. It seems to me reasonable
Okay.
because I forget.
Okay, and with that, what I wanted to check with you on that, my feeling on this is that it should, I want to create like just at least a one-page form and just have, and I thought I would come back with a draft with some of the information on there, as opposed to just somebody shooting one of you an email saying, hey, I want to name this for, such a park. It feels like a naming request is big enough that there ought to be a little bit more effort put into a request than just, an email says, hey.
I mean, I'd be in favor of a standardized form, but out of curiosity, when it comes to city governments, is there anything, I know like with the federal government, there's the Paperwork Reduction Act, and once you create a form, you then have to, jump through a couple more hoops to get that approved. Are there any types of, restrict or demands made upon city governments, or can we just go ahead and create a form and not have to worry about things like that?
Yeah, we can just create a form.
Well, that's good.
Okay. And then the last one is this idea of, do we want to create a criteria or justification for a name request? I mean, we're gonna, so imagine, we're gonna have, well, this was for a street name, but I recently had somebody approach me and say, hey, my mom was super involved in the city council for a bunch of years, and I want to name a street for her, and what is the process?
Right.
So, in this situation, it was a street, so it wasn't my purview. So I referred her to someone else in the city, but it could have just as well been, hey, my mom or my dad was on the Park and Rec Commission, during the 70s and yada, yada, yada. So, we will have to at some point, be able to look at have some sort of, rubric or criteria or something that, how do we judge, right? So, do we have things in place, or do we just sort of free form it? What are your thoughts around how do we go about deciding whether there is a merit for a name request?
I like the free form idea. I really do, because these other things are just sort of very, very definitive. Really.
I kind of like the idea of having, these criteria on the form, and maybe, you check mark, it's because of a monetary donation, or, career, these other ones you have here about the volunteer service or public service. But, there could be another block for other, and that allows people, if they don't fall within one of those criteria, still to be able to submit something. And if they have, a written justification or a good reason why it should be, named after a person, or not even a person, but if it needs to be renamed, then they can then have the opportunity to, still submit something.
Okay.
Makes sense. So instead of anything else, it's other. Okay. But those are just written so that people have some ideas of what they're talking about, right? Is that what you're saying, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, because I think that these are, the three main reasons why probably something would be named.
Yeah.
But again, I giving that other, all right, well, if there are some circumstances that, that would not fall within those three categories, the public should still be able to have the opportunity to submit something.
Good. I'd say go with that.
Yeah, I think I would not use criteria or justification. If you're talking about on a form, I might just say, reason for the request. And then you could say examples might be, donation or significant amount or blah, blah, blah. And then leave it for whoever it is that wants to submit this form to explain why they think it's a good idea. But if you say criteria justification, and then I looked at it and I said, well, the reason I'm submitting this doesn't fit in this, then I don't get to do it. You don't want it to be the closed door. You want it to just say, hey, tell us why you are making this request.
Good
Again,
point.
the PowerPoint is just to facilitate conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously, the forms are going to be much less, this is more like, this is just to get us talking. So I'm trying to make it so it creates conversation. So again, the form that I will put together will be draft, and then we can look at it. And at that point we can start wordsmithing, whether it feels right.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we use a softer word like reason rather than
Yeah, of course.
justification or criteria.
Right.
Good point, Vicki. Okay.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is I did notice that some of the other policies are very prescriptive.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing us being maybe open to not being quite so.
Rigid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I felt in reading those, the different ones from the other organizations, just the tone of the way it was written. Some were like very, very rigid, and other ones are like, hey, this is a great thing, and we're, so I think, making it all positive is the way I would suggest it be written.
Good. Good point. I agree. Okay. Now what?
Okay.
Oh, did we talk about the cost recovery?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, we didn't. Should there be any kind of a fee associated with making a name request?
Is there a fee? Would it cost a lot? Where's the fee? Where is the money come into it?
I'm asking the question, do we want to have any kind of a fee? And basically cost recovery just means,
For
you know, it
staff
would
time.
be- Yeah, it would be like, you know, like when you pull just a regular permit, it's just staff time to review it, you know.
Okay, I got you.
$100, something
Oh,
like that. Just, it's just the question. I'm, you know, these are not anything that I'm for or against. I'm just asking the question.
I mean, I don't think we're going to be overburdened with submissions of forms for renaming or naming. But at the same time, I mean, I think charging a nominal fee would probably show the seriousness
Mhm.
of it, and the city is able to recoup a little bit of the cost that would be associated with processing this request. So I think a fee, a nominal fee might be, something we could consider. Anyone else think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Because there's certain, staff time will certainly go into a little bit to this, or quite a bit, right? Wouldn't you suspect? I don't know.
What other things do we charge fees for within recreation and parks?
Like, what about heritage trees? Is there a fee for that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't know. Franklin, do you know?
yes, I think there is.
I mean, for the permits or to put a heritage, I don't think there
No, for the
are.
permits. We're talking about we're talking about like to even be able to submit a request, you need to pay a fee.
Because that would be in your arena, Rita, don't they? If they're memorial benches, picnic tables,
What? I'm sorry.
is that part of the memorial? Like, if there's somebody's paying for a memorial bench, or that's part of that cost, wouldn't it? Was that where the heritage tree falls into as well?
Well, no, if somebody wants to remove a heritage tree, don't they have to submit?
Yeah, they do submit permits, so there is a cost to this.
Yeah, what is that? I think
permits.
that's what we're asking.
Okay, I'm not sure what the fee is for that one, so. But there is a fee, and there's a fee to if you want to appeal it. So after they brought it to you and they have to appeal, they have to pay another fee, so.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
Well, maybe
so-
we could find out what that is and then sort of follow suit.
Okay.
yeah,
I'm not quite sure if I'm super comfortable with a cost recovery fee unless we know what the costs are, or
Mhm.
calling it that. It just feels like we're now making people write an essay and put money down when they, it feels a little burdensome to me. And I'm not quite sure whether, frankly, $100, the cost of processing $100 is probably going to take $100. So what are we really trying to do with our $100?
Yeah, I think I would start out leaning towards no fee. And if it really does become some kind of a cumbersome thing where all of a sudden you're finding out, everybody's coming out of the woodwork to request name changes and things, then maybe you could reconsider putting a fee to it.
good point. Good idea, you two, good. I like that.
I could certainly go along with that.
Okay. So it sounds like we've pivoted and decided no fee to be returned, to be revisited later as needed.
Needs to,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, and then finally, just the way that how a name request kind of goes through the process. So first, where should the name request form go to? Who should, on the bottom of the form, it says, submit this form to who? Should it be somebody in park on your board, the chair? Should it be,
It should be a staff
maybe the
person.
director?
I definitely think it should be a staff person. And whether it goes to DPW or Park and Rec, I don't know. What happens now?
The process is all parks fall under public works. So any issues with the parks, any maintenance, it all goes to public works. So recreation only covers programming and the rentals.
Yeah, Okay.
I think we should continue that follow suit, you know. Have it submitted to Department of Public Works,
Mhm.
then gets vetted by staff,
Yeah,
and then brought to the commission for review after that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good.
All right, so it gets, so we'll just say it goes to the Public Works Director, and then, you know, the director will staff it out to somebody
Yeah.
at DPW. And so that, at that level, it will get vetted. So say, for instance, you know, somebody saying, oh, my uncle, you know, Joe Brown, you know, was on the board for, you know, was on the PRC for 8 years, you know, back in the 90s. We would then, and this is where like the cost recovery thing comes into play, where, you know,
Yeah.
we would take the time to, you know, look through the archives and look for, you know, did he in fact serve
Sure.
during the years it stated, you know,
Sure,
make sure it's accurate, make sure it's verified. Or if, you know, if they claim that they, you know, he was a member of, you know, he was the park and rec director for whatever, so we'll do that. And then once the information that is provided has been vetted and verified, then would then bring it to your board for review. So obviously you know, the meetings are publicly noticed, so people know that, you know, these meetings are held,
Mhm.
you know, every whatever Thursday of the month. Some of the agencies also had like a special noticing. So, you know, we have 3 official public noticing spots. We have one in front of City Hall, one over by Bon Air Shopping Center, and the other one over by
Yeah,
Marin Country Mart. You know, notice to public, you know, name change of park being considered.
right.
We could do something like that to make sure that, you know, and it also goes on the website, I believe. So do we want to take that extra level of notification?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, especially webpage, it seems.
Yeah.
Could we, I mean, I'm sorry, did you mention notification at the site of the location, the facility and or the park?
Oh, it could be done that as well. Sure.
Good point.
Like
I
that.
think that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that might be where you're gonna get the people who care the most about that, whether
yeah.
you care most about.
Okay.
the park. So-
Totally agree.
Yep.
Very, very good point.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Okay, so then the public noticing happens, the meeting comes around, obviously there'll be, you know, people opportunity to, you know, speak to public commentary on that topic, because it'll be an agendized item. And at that point, do we feel like the PR that your board, like, would you feel it like as a board, like you would be able to review the information, be able to, you know, the person, oh, I'm sorry, we should also add that the person making the request, it would be mandatory for them to be in attendance at that meeting.
Mhm.
And then you would have an opportunity to ask them questions about, you know, why this person, you know, why are they making the request for the name? And at that end of that meeting, do we feel like that's enough time to have made the decision whether or not to recommend the name change to the city council or to deny? Or is there a third option of, you know, we sit on it until the next meeting? What do you feel like the process should be?
Well, I think it should be all that. I mean, you know, maybe you want to sit on it because you need more information or something. You know, I think that. And it definitely, like everything else we decided, everything goes to the council. We just make recommendations.
I think it could be run similar to how the heritage tree
Yeah.
requests are made. You know, we typically can, you know, have enough information to decide at that initial meeting. But
Mhm.
sometimes we kick it back and we ask for additional information or
Yeah,
clarification or something like that.
exactly. Good point.
Okay. So the goal will be to make a decision at the end of that meeting, but you always reserve the option to
Mhm.
defer it to the next meeting.
Ask for more information, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and then after that, and so this is, this is where the policy would go in. So a similar thing would happen, once you've made the recommendation that, assuming that you made the recommendation that the name request be approved,
Mhm.
then would send it to city council. Same process would happen, in terms of notification, and then they would deny or approve, and then if it's denied, in this part, I'm not sure if this is something that's like sort of a legal policy or what, but I think I think we do have to have an avenue of at least one appeal.
Well, the city council know, and Dan will know somebody will know how to handle that.
So like I
Whatever.
said, I will find out, but I think I just wanted to let
Like-
you know that this is
I
the way
see.
that I'm
Okay,
seeing
I see.
the
I see.
process. And does anything seem out of whack to you? Or any more time maybe baked in on any of this?
Looks good.
No, it looks good.
Okay,
I just want to bring up one thing. I found it interesting. One of those jurisdictions talked about letters of recommendation and submitting 2 letters of recommendation. I didn't feel strongly about that, but I found that interesting. I was just curious if any of the other commissioners read about that and had any opinion about submitting these, getting someone to submit some type of, letter, backing their submission. To me, it seems a little bit unnecessary, but I was just curious if anyone else had an opinion.
Mm. I think if people are behind it, then they can add on, but otherwise, I don't think we need to have.
Make it a mandatory requirement, right?
Yeah, no.
I think our tendency is to not mandate. And I think I can see situations like the one that we heard about a couple of meetings ago where that just feels like a very heartless thing to ask a father to submit
Yeah.
letters of support for.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Good
I don't want to
point.
be in that
That's a good
situation.
thing a good way to put it, yes.
Yeah, I also think it's like with the tree hearings, some people will have folks submit letters or emails supporting
Yeah.
it or not. And we don't have to mandate it. We can just, if people want to do it, great. If not, that's fine too.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, Vicky, good. Okay,
so maybe in the form, I'll just say, letters of recommendation in supporting whatever can be maybe attached to this request if desired, something like that.
sounds good.
Allows them to add those things if they want. Okay, okay, so the next steps is we don't need to do any more discussion. I think we're done unless anybody has any other things that they want to review that I may have looked over. And if not, then the next time hopefully at the next meeting, I'll put together a draft policy for review. And then and the form, and then we can take a look at that and hopefully get a policy in place.
You've done a great job putting a
Great
lot
job.
into this.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
putting a lot of thought into this.
Yep, very nice.
As always, you're very thorough.
And I hope our feedback has been, positive and helpful for you.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. I mean, I think, like I said, a lot of the questions, may have seemed simplistic, but it was really more just about it's to show that we at least looked at it, talked about it.
Yeah.
It's on the record as having, yes, of course, anybody from the public, obviously that was such a, it seemed like a duh question, but it's important to say, yes, we talked about it, that anybody in the public can make a name request. Anybody, whether you're a board member, you're a
Yeah.
city council member, you're just, Joe Schmo down the street, things like that. And I wanted this, this particular topic to be, I want to start having our meetings be more open-ended discussion. And so again, the PowerPoint is really, it's just a vehicle to encourage conversation. And I don't think we're really used to doing that so much. And so I really wanted it to be, this thing where we feel, I don't want to be the person just writing a policy. You look at it, rubber stamp it. That's not what I want. And I think we had all talked about it individually as, we want this to be a collaborative effort. So hopefully this can be the model for other things going forward. So thank you for your patience. I know, Sandy, you seem like we're like, come on, let's move it along. But, really, we're trying to be more conversational and, make sure that we're really thinking through some of these things so that, because when you're writing a policy, it is something where we want to at least have put some thought into it. So we don't want to keep having to revise the policy. So
Good
anyway,
point.
thank you. So
Great.
Franklin, I am done with this part of it, and so we can move.
Your next one is your park update. Don't run away yet, Rita.
Sorry, I always feel like the talking head is kind of trying to get away from that.
Thank you, Rita.
Okay, thank you. And let me get my next PowerPoint up. Share screen.
Did you make a new one, Rita? Because right now it's not attached to the agenda, so we'll have to get a copy of it to put with the packet when we archive it.
The PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For the
we're
park
gonna do it,
update.
right?
I don't know if you made one for the park update or you're just going to do a talk.
Oh, yeah, I
Everything's out right
haven't
now.
been, yeah, I can attach I can certainly attach I can attach that. Or I can send it to Allison later. Okay, let's see here. What are we seeing?
A park update.
The cover of your slide.
Yes, you just got to start your slideshow and it'll be good.
Wonderful. Okay, so you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. All right. So in the works, this is what we're working on right now. Dolliver Park, I had I put out the bid for contractor bids. The bids were due today. I didn't get any. But it wasn't entirely unexpected because I had to do it in a very kind of a formal way. Where we had had the city council approve the plans and spec package, just sort of a public works bidding process. I had to go through that exercise in a way. So now that I have given everybody ample opportunity to make a bid on it, now I can individually negotiate with contractors. So a lot of these playground installers, like one guy didn't want to have to purchase equipment. Another guy didn't want to have to provide a bid bond. So there's reasons why some of these smaller contractors can't or don't want to bid on public works when it's a big packet like that. So anyway, that was the outcome of it. And so starting tomorrow, I'm going to start. I'm going to be reaching out to them individually and seeing what I can do to get that project going. So that was Dolliver Park. Greenbury School Park, that the metal climber that's going to come out of Dolliver will go into Greenbury, and so that's combined with that project. So those are happening concurrently. Over at Niven Park, the topography and surveying work was completed. The architectural team has put together a 25% design plan, meaning it's at 25% completion. So I'm meeting with the Quambex tomorrow to review what has been put together. And then based on their feedback, we'll go back to the architects and they'll continue with the construction drawings. Any questions on those so far? No?
No,
Okay. Okay. Hamilton Park, I got some core samples done for the pathway that goes around the park. And that'll help me with tightening up the scope of work for the asphalt path repaving. And the same thing was done at Piper Park, and I'm bidding those two. I'm going to be quoting those two projects at those two parks. It's the same work, but it's two different parks. So I'm doing it at the same time. Also ordering new tables and bench for Hamilton Park. And then moving on to Piper Park, the paving path will happen at the same time as Hamilton. The park rules signage. So if you recall, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, we met and we talked about the different rules that we needed to have at the Piper Park picnic area. So those signs went up last weekend. So what we did, I talked to Nick Stone the other day, and he said that he noticed that there has been an uptick in people asking to rent tables. So that's a good thing.
Good.
Also, the electrical feed to the picnic area, I'm going to be, I've got one quote to put that, to run the new service, and I'm waiting for 2 more quotes from other electrical contractors, and I've asked them to submit a quote by tomorrow. And then the construction staging that has been set up.
Excuse
at
me,
the
can I
park.
ask a question on that one about the electrical feed? Is that to go over to the stage?
Yes, for the stage, and then also the, over by the picnic areas for the jumpy houses,
Yeah, okay.
instead of using generators.
Mhm.
The construction staging that had been set up at Piper Park for the city project, the PG&E project, is done. And so the parking lot has been reopened. So. And last thing is, before I move to that, any other questions about any other parks? Nope. I'm sorry, I can't see you folks. That's why I'm asking the questions, if you're nodding or not nodding, but.
Okay, no,
No.
Okay. And then finally, request. So we have a request from City Council. So last week or 2 weeks ago, they did a strategic planning meeting. And so one of the things that they were looking at was the various planning documents throughout the city, storm drain, 5-year pavement plan, storm drain master plan. And so they also looked at our planning documents for our parks. And it was noted that the Piper Park master plan is from 2012. It was adopted in 2012. So the public outreach and whatnot was probably done 2010, 2011, something like that. So they have asked you folks to take a look at the plan and review it, see if there's a need or desire to update the plan, and to sort of start creating maybe some wish lists of facilities or amenities that you think might be you'd like to get public feedback on. So that is the request from council. And so
who's going to help with that? Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Who's going to help our commission with that effort?
It'll be me and Nick, and then we'll bring in Rita and then other people from Public Works too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so the link, if you just type in cityoflarkspur.org/master Piper Park master plan, all one word, that'll take you to the master plan, the existing master plan. You can take a look at it, and then at the next meeting or the meeting after, whatever, we will we can discuss any thoughts that you have about the plan and how you would like to see, what kind of things you might want to see in the new plan. So basically, we'll be like, there's different things that are listed on there. A lot of the work has already been done. So, but there's other amenities that we may want to consider doing out there. And, so part of the master plan when you do a plan like this, you would get, usually it's an architectural firm would be involved. And so they would do
Yeah.
town hall workshops and, let's say they'd have storyboards and, hey, what do you think about a bocce ball court? What do you think about a outdoor fitness, equipment, things like that. So, so if there's anything that you personally would like to see, this would be a time to put it on the plan and get feedback from the public.
Okay.
That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you.
Any questions, thoughts?
No.
I just had a question about the Piper Park master plan. Is there a time frame for when the city council was hoping for it to be completed?
Not that we know of right now, so.
Pardon me?
As far as I know, we haven't had a date set for us yet. So I know that we'll put it on next month's agenda, so.
Okay. Great. Commissioners, any other questions, comments on Rita's 2 items or parks update? Okay. Seeing none, I think that was an informational item, so I don't think we need any votes on it. So moving on to the director's oral report. Hello?
Yes, thank you guys. Our big one that just happened last weekend was our assistant director with Corte Madera put on our holiday egg hunt in the town park at Corte Madera. So there were over 400 children there, and they picked up all the hidden 8,000 eggs that were hidden all over the park. So we were able to finally, we had the eggs that we bought for the year that COVID happened. They are now all gone. And so we're excited about next year. They were really worried at the very beginning because it was raining and really hard. But the sun came out right in time and the kids came out and everybody got eggs. It was really fun. So that was one of our first public events that we've had in a while. It's really exciting. We're waiting because next year it'll be in Piper Park, and Nick is also ready to do the flashlight egg hunt. People keep asking for that, but it's too late this year, but we'll have one for next year. Summer school has opened for registration. Some classes have filled up, but there's still some classes ready to be filled up. We're still trying to find out, I'm waiting to hear back how Kinder Camp is coming. So that's usually in August at Basic. So we're waiting to see how that's going to work out. We're trying to get some new teachers. The last teacher that used to do it no longer is with the school. So we're trying to find a new recruit. So we're hoping to get that up and going. Our new staff member has come on, Gianni, and so he'll be working most of his time right now at recreation, but he will do some time at the library as well. And eventually we're hoping, hopefully sometime next month, we'll at least be open a day or two to the public again. So the public will be able to come into the office. And we're hoping, one of the goals for next year is to be open more days to the public so they can come into the office as well. The library is also going to start visiting the parks. Our first event will be this April 30th on Saturday. We are celebrating Dia de los Niños there, and we'll have a performer in Dolliver Park. So it's just walking distance from the library. And then during the summer, we'll be doing pop-up libraries at various parks around the city. So not all of them, but some of them with good parking. So we'll have some events, and we're hoping just to target people who in the neighborhoods who live around the parks to come out to the, not having everybody come clear across town for something. So except if we do something in Piper. But that'll be in the summer. And then, yeah, we've submitted our budget. We had our budget presentation last night. So we did that at council. We had a flat budget, so nothing really changed for us. So we just moved things around to cover our costs. But so far, the recreation side of the budget is doing really well. And we still have room to grow. And I keep telling Nick, if we need to hire some more staff, we'll hire the staff. But we're just preparing for super cool summer school because that is a lot of staff time. And hopefully our goal in the future would be to find some sponsors and partners to help us with Music of the Park. I know that Larkspur Foundation that Sandy's on is also going to do one event this summer. We're planning to do a movie in September, but yeah, we're hoping to find some sponsors because I know we really would like to do holiday lights in the park, but that's going to cost money. So we're hoping to find a sponsor. So if you know a realtor or somebody who would like to sponsor a big event, let us know because we'd be happy to work with them to get something going. So, but we're starting to gear up and programming has come back. I wanted to show you the pictures that Rita was talking about because they took a photo of me the other day of the new rules. So this is one of the signs. They look really nice. They're really easy to read. And then the one for the picnic tables is really good too. So stop the share one more time. So this is for the picnic tables, and it is now automated, so you can go online and reserve your picnic tables online. We you know, as everything online, sometimes there's a mess up, but people have called the office and we've been able to you know, refund or reschedule or move their reservations around. But that's up and that's helping people you know, get the parks. We're still working on a solution to have at the tables, but this one sign is really helping because it's right there as you're walking towards the picnic tables and you see it because it's all by itself. It's still a sign. Rita did an awesome job and the sails up, like, it looks really nice out there too. So so that's it for now. Do you guys have any questions or?
Nice job with that sign.
Muted me.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to ask, when you talk about looking for a sponsor, ballpark,
Yeah,
kind of commitment.
well, I know for the lights in the park, I think it was a lot of money. It's to put up, we were hoping to put holiday lights around Piper Park to make an event where people could come in from you know, around just to see something holiday-ish, like that, but we still understand that we'd have to have time limits, that, you know, the lights would have to turn off at a certain time, since the parks technically close at dusk. So once it's nighttime, they're supposed to close. But we're hoping we wanted to do it last year, but we were trying to find the money to do it. So I was just trying to do something different that could draw in people to the park. So, but I think we asked the foundation, but we still needed to find more money. We couldn't cover all the costs, and the foundation was going to cover all the costs either. So that's why we were hoping to maybe find a sponsor who could, you know, to help with the money. But I can't remember the exact cost right now, but it was a huge sum, so more than we could pay for.
It's like 25,000, I think, wasn't it?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's just in trying to, you know, cast about to try to find a sponsor, it helps to be able to give them a ballpark, what kind of a commitment we're asking for. So that's helpful.
Yeah, and then Nick will have more details on it because we had found somebody who would do it for us. I was trying to make sure that we got LED lights, so we're having energy savings. But we're trying to think of all the logistics that we need to plan for and who we need to work with to make sure that you know, that they turned off at night, so they were not on all night long, because you don't want people in the park all night long. You only want them there for a little brief time. But then also too, because of COVID restrictions, we were also trying to figure out how we would make something, you know, to have like the ribbon cutting, that, you know, the opening ceremony. Because we want to make sure whoever sponsors it gets some publicity and gets, you know, their picture in the newsletter. And that was why I was like trying to, if the foundation did it, we were going to have all their board come out. But the worry thing for them was COVID. And so there are still some COVID issues, but we're trying to move forward. And I know everybody's ready to get back to the way things were before. So are we. We're ready to get our programming up and running. And then we'll eventually start working on a strategic plan for the community services department. So we'll be bringing that to you as well. So because you'll have input on that as well as the library board. So.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions?
I'd like to go back, if I might, to just getting a sponsor for your lights. Are you going to maybe let us know if 25,000? I think that's what I recall from last year, but how can we?
Well, see, I think when we first approached you, Sandy, we were still trying to find someone else to sponsor, so we could get a couple of different sponsors to help pay for it, because like sometimes it is a very large sum. But we were just trying to find who do we talk to and what members of the community who might be willing to pay for that or to help sponsor that. So that was what we're trying to figure out, because I'm still pretty new to town. I don't know that many people, and I haven't been able to get out that much because of the restrictions. And now that things are starting to open up, I'm hoping to meet more of the residents of Larkspur. So we can find out, maybe make those connections at the chamber with the business or the restaurant group as well. So eventually we'll find somebody. And if you know somebody, let me know too, because I'd like to meet them and see if they would be willing to sponsor something. So,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
I just had a question about the budget.
Mhm.
I know the presentation, or I wasn't able to watch last night at the city council. Those are taped, right? And we could.
Yeah, they should be up on YouTube pretty soon, if not already,
Okay.
right? Our city clerk will know. She's the one. Allison puts them up for us, right, Allison?
Yes, it is posted and available to watch.
So if we were to, I mean, I don't want to make you do the same presentation or have Julian Skinner do that, but if we had some questions.
Yeah, no, if you have
After
questions,
watching.
because really for
Okay.
us, I did it a little different this year for the community services department. We're still trying to mesh us together. So instead of doing two separate sets of goals, I just did one, because a lot of our goals do overlap, like working with the school districts, working with community partners. They do overlap for both the library and recreation. It's just sometimes what we're trying to do is a little different. But those are our big goals. The strategic plan will also help us plan for the future, for future programming, to look what our staffing needs would be, to make sure that we can cover all this stuff. But also the master plan for Piper Park. I know that there's people who have requested, public have requested different types of, like a pickleball court and things like that. So those are some of the things why we thought it's a good time to start reviewing the master plan, because we have also finished, like Rita said, a lot of projects have been done, and we're still moving forward, but it's time to look at it again and see what we can add to it. So
Great. Well, seeing no further discussion, let's move on to commissioners' reports. Does anyone have something to report?
Not me.
Okay. Seeing nothing to report, I think we're moving on to adjournment. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Thank all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. And Rita, thank you so much
Rita, thank
for
you.
that great conversation.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
See you next month.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
good
bye,
night.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.